all right. Bonjour, bonjour, comment allez-vous? Hey, I'm glad to see everybody here. We hope you had a great week so far, and we're here to make it better. If you've been here before, you know we enhance your lives by giving you all this good information. But before we get started, first of all, I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, particularly the new people. Hi, Nikki. Hey, baby. Hey, Robert. But as in usual fashion, y'all know what we do. If you are a normal viewer or a fan of ours, the first thing we do, we toast it up. So here's to everybody on the live right here. And I want to ask y'all a question. Is it just me, or do these days seem to be going by relatively quickly? I mean, I still haven't gotten past January, and it's already February. So there's something going on. It must be in the food that we eat or something. But anyway, last week we talked about how we can make our partners better. Now, it was a great discussion. If you missed it, it's on my Facebook, so you can go ahead and check it out. But we've got a caveat discussion from last week. And tonight we're going to be discussing how can we move on from a relationship without regret. Now, anybody can move on, but how can we do that without having any regret? We're going to discuss it, so let's talk about it. Let me bring my co-host on so we can get it started. Hey, Miss O'Neill.
Hey there, sir.
How you doing?
Man, I seen you playing them little keys. Boy, you might got some little skills right there.
Hey, I be trying hard. I want to bring it to the people so they can enjoy it.
Yeah, cause they don't want me playing.
Nah, they don't want you on there. They
You
they
should,
don't want you playing.
cause baby, I'll be ready.
All right. Hey, Keith, I don't know what's up with Keith, but don't look like I can. He joined, but you might have to go back out, Keith. But anyway, Miss O'Neill, how's your week so far?
Oh, child, it's been lovely. Listen, I've been
Okay.
off. I had to end my shift.
Okay. Hey, well,
Yeah.
that's what's happening there.
Yep.
That's
I've been
what's
off the
happening.
whole week, and the only reason I ain't on camera right now, cause I had put my lip gloss on. Wait, I'm finna get on there right now, cause you know y'all didn't want to see no.
Now we don't want to see no
So
crusty lips. I
yep,
don't
I
know.
got it together
Bring it
now.
tonight. All right.
When you go back and look at this, you gonna see me. I put my stuff on. I'll be like, you know that CarMax, yeah.
I feel you. Hey, what's
Yes.
going on, Keith?
What's up, guys? What's going on?
Oh man, another day, another dollar. Still trying to make it. Yeah.
Definitely. Another 50 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it seems, because a
I
dollar
don't
don't
know.
go
I
far.
ain't manifesting that. I'm manifesting a whole lot of dollars, and not really dollars. They gonna have 20 and 50 on the front and hundreds. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
that's what we doing. That's
Hey,
what
but
we
you
doing.
got it like that. All you got to do is put it in your mind. Anything you dream, you can achieve. We already proved
Yep.
that time and time again.
Especially when you drinking the blue moon. But okay.
Oh Lord. Yeah, you
But
gonna be
these days is definitely flying though. I can't believe we already at the end of Feb. It's crazy. But Blue
man, that's
Moon, yeah, do your
crazy, ain't
thing.
it? I'm barely past January. I'm trying to figure out where that went. We already halfway through February already. I'm telling you, it's got to be something that we eat or something, man. I don't know what it is. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. Listen, we said, how can you move on from a relationship without having regret? Now, as I stated earlier, anybody can move on. You can just go and leave. But that's not the proper way to do things. All right? Moving on from a relationship without regret does not mean pretending it did not matter. When you move on, you can't pretend that it didn't matter or it didn't add anything significant to your life. Because every experience we have it adds something to our life. So what we got to figure out is how do we make it so that we don't become bitter, so that we can grow, and so that we can become better individuals, so that we're better prepared for the next relationship. That's the key. When you move on, it means integrating what happened in that relationship to your life story without letting it define or diminish you. If you move on without letting it define you or make you feel small. Now, we know many people that we've seen in relationships, and they come out bitter, and some of them even blame themselves. So we're going to clear all that up. You shouldn't blame yourself. It's an experience just like all other life experiences. And we should add that to our repertoire so that we become better. Regret, listen to this. Regret only comes from believing you could have done something better. Now, if you didn't give it all your all, then you may have regret. But regret comes from believing that we could have done something better. It doesn't mean that we're thinking that we're responsible for the failure of the relationship. So people get it twisted. When you leave the relationship and you're regretful, it's because you believe you could have done something better. And it does not necessarily mean that whatever happened, that you are responsible. Now, when you start blaming yourself for the entire relationship, then you're giving yourself a disadvantage and you're not giving yourself credit for at least trying to make it work. Now, we're talking about people who tried to make their relationships work. We're not talking about people who had alternative motives that they planned to get something out of it and they weren't interested in the relationship. We're not talking about those kind of people. If you showed up with integrity, communicated when it mattered, and grew in the relationship instead of doing what most people do, avoid critical moments. A lot of people, when things get rough and tough, they try to avoid it and pretend it didn't happen or do something to remove that thinking from their minds. If you grew in the relationship instead of avoiding critical moments, then the ending of that relationship isn't a failure. It's a completed chapter. We all know that every relationship that we involve ourselves with is not meant to last forever. Although when we find people that are compatible to us and people we like being around, we hope it never ends. But that's fantasy. We don't know how long any relationship is going to last. That's why I always emphasize you have to live and enjoy the moment. Because things could be going perfect and the relationship can become upended. So we have to live and enjoy the moment because we can't predict what may happen, and we certainly can't predict behavior. We can't predict what somebody else may do. You may think that it's perfect. You may think that he's your person or she's your person. And if you don't really know them well enough, and even if you know them more than you know most other people, you don't know what they may do. What you say? I see you smacking that lip gloss.
Because I'm about to tell you something.
I knew it. Go ahead.
Well, hell, the only thing I regret I ain't leave sooner. Not in the relationship I'm in now, but the last one. Hell, I waited too long. Secondly, in the relationship I'm in now, this is the last one I got in me. So he ain't quitting me and I ain't quitting me, or else he got some splaining and some problems. So I don't know nothing about that. It is perfect. We're gonna work it out and make it perfect. When it ain't, we're gonna talk about it. And if he don't want to talk about it, well, he can't not talk about it with me. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's the
I
last
find
one I
that
got
hard
in.
to believe that he can't. Hey, you
No,
gonna make somebody talk. I can tell.
yep, cause soon as he starts saying leave, I'ma just be like, nope, nope, we ain't talking about that. We stand. Cause this the last one I got in me, baby. I'm gonna make sure the last one he got in him too. Now,
You gonna make sure of that? All right.
yes,
Okay.
I
You
am.
sounded a little like with the pots and pans. You know
Didn't
what I
I tell
mean?
y'all
Cut
about
it
them
out.
pots and pans? I got one for every size, every
Cut it
situation,
out.
and that's the big one.
I,
It
I'm,
worked on
I'm,
my
that
granddaddy.
that sounds like Stella got a groove back to me. Them sound threatening.
Stella got a swing back. You know, ain't never left. But yeah, it worked on my
Okay.
granddad. I told y'all about that story.
What the pot said?
Bro, the way my grandma dinged his head with them pots, that taught me a lesson the whole time. All I gotta do is
So
learn how to
that's where you
swing.
get it from. That's why you
Baby,
think it's
I learned
okay,
from the
huh?
best. Baby, I learned from the best, and I
That's why
know
you
how
think
to
it's
cure
okay to
them.
ding
I
people
know
with
how to
pots.
cure it too. Yep, you're
That's
gonna put a
that's
little
called
oil in it.
assault and battery. That's
No, it
assault
ain't.
and battery. Yes, it is.
It's called keeping my relationship safe. And I cure it so it slide off real good. Had an oil on and everything.
What
Keep
you
on
hoping that when
thinking
you hoping that when you hit him with the pot that he get amnesia, he just fall into your trance, huh?
he ain't gonna get amnesia. He just ain't gonna leave. I want him to know everything that just happened so he can get ready for the next time.
How
Now
he gonna do
go.
that with a knot on his head though?
Ain't nobody else gonna
Well,
want him when I
Jordan,
get through with
you
his head.
can't. That's an old way of thinking. You can't be just beating somebody into submission, man.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
now wait a
you
minute. See,
can't go
now look. So
nowhere.
since we talking about wait a minute, since we talking about relationships and leaving without regret, they see that's the funny thing about y'all. Me and y'all want us to submit, and y'all want us to be all
I didn't
calm and
say that.
everything.
Who said that?
Well, you gonna say it in a minute. I know what you gonna.
Oh
Listen. You were
Lord. Oh
saying that you're gonna
Lord.
beat somebody with some pipes, and then
I
they end
mean
up
it.
leaving. Okay,
I
well
mean it.
that's beating someone into submission. You
And
can't
if
do
the
that.
pot and pan don't work, I got the saucepan in the other hand.
Oh Lord have mercy.
You violent. I'm scared of you.
Go on, just talk. Go on, talk.
Yeah,
Go on.
let me go ahead. All right, because I'm over here shaking now. Oh, hey, and you our grand worthy matron too.
Hey, I'm trying to tell them how to do, baby. Get you
Yeah.
them frying pans, and when they run out, you got them saucepans, and they all sizes too. But go
Oh
on
man.
talk now.
All right. All right. So, like I said, if you do everything that you can and you grew in the relationship and you didn't avoid those critical moments, then the ending of the relationship is not a failure. It's a completed chapter in your life. And a completed chapter in your life should be added to your repertoire so that you can become better. You can grieve the loss of an individual without indicting yourself. So you don't have to place blame on yourself. On the other hand, if you didn't, you might feel that the failure and the reasons that the relationship didn't work is your responsibility. Another part of moving on, go ahead. I get
Well,
it
I
out
think
now.
first, when you talking about that, I think everybody has to be ready to take accountability for what happened in the relationship. Because sometimes when things are over, you just want to point your finger at something that the other person did. Matter of fact, I had a
Yeah,
conversation with
that's
this
what most
about,
people do. Most
yeah,
people want to blame somebody.
right. So before you point the finger at somebody, and I'm not necessarily saying it's a blame game like he's saying, but before you point the finger at somebody, you just have to take accountable for yours. And yes, like the answer D said, you got to just be ready to move on. But I'm gonna first look at it and say, okay, well, you know what, I shouldn't have let, even if it's you let something last too long, or you didn't say something, or you know what I'm saying. So you got to be able to
Yeah,
look at it from all angles.
but see, that's when you get into selfish motives and being selfish. why is it necessary that you blame somebody for the relationship? I'm not saying that there's one person that was more responsible than the other or did more, but everyone contributed to the relationship,
Yeah,
right?
but a lot of people don't want. A lot of people, as quiet as it's kept, they don't want to place, say, "Well, I could have did this or I should have did this." Immediately, like when you pass them little play stages and you grown, if you gotta question yourself now, why he going out this time now, or why am I just snapping or this and that, then you know something is wrong. Hell, you know he going out because you either done got on his nerves and he cheating, or he doing something he ain't supposed to do because you done got on the man nerve. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's the
You
case,
going
but
a
I mean,
different
if you have to,
direction, my friend. You going a
yeah,
different
Yeah,
but
direction,
no,
bro.
but I'm saying if you have to keep asking yourself, sometimes just take accountability for it. If you every time you get to argue, or he look at your face and he got to walk out, you know what I'm saying?
well,
Think
look,
about what you doing.
I think
So I'm
more.
just saying,
I think this is more along the lines of, and I'm just saying. I hear what you're saying. I
yeah,
everything you're saying is
go on.
no. Everything you're saying is actually right. Right. What I'm saying is I think more where we saying with this conversation is the people who leave relationships, right? And they
Hmm.
carry the baggage of regret of they coulda, shoulda, woulda, and then they take that into the next situation. Not so much the situations of where you're in it and those things. I think more what we're saying on this is about more the people who carry certain things, right? Because I've been through a
Yeah,
divorce,
I
as
mean,
you guys know.
I
So,
can't deny that part either. I've done that too. I
right,
had to
that's what we're
get
talking
past that.
about. So talk to
But
that.
I still had to get that other part out the way,
yeah,
young man.
But how did you
but
get out
see,
of it though? No, no, no. Listen to me.
I mean,
Did you?
I just decided. You know what? I had to choose me.
There you
I
go.
had to
Okay.
want,
Hmm.
in all seriousness, I had to choose me, and I had to want a better me
There
because
you
I
go.
realized that I didn't want to be somebody's captive person, and I mean this literally, or somebody's trophy, or not be allowed to go certain places, or where my trips to the grocery store was like my leisure time. I had to be like, what in the Sam Hill hecky darn, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, it gets that way. But I'm
yeah,
still saying, in with all that, I had to take accountability, to the fact that not that I just allowed it, but because I didn't have enough belief in myself. I didn't have enough confidence in myself, or who I was. Could I survive on my own, and this, that, and the third. So I mean, there's a lot of factors that play into how somebody deals with things in a relationship, or when somebody goes. There's
But that's a
kids,
perfect
there's
answer. That's a perfect
yeah,
answer what you
that,
gave because we're
yeah,
talking about how did you deal with it, not the other things you said. We on another level. You on another level. So we already know some of these things that you're saying. We talking to the
yeah,
people who ain't on your level per se, who don't
yeah,
understand. So what you just said, that's the key. How do you move on without holding yourself as the main culprit when it takes two to tango? And I
right.
think that's what we're talking about.
And two, I had to get past the angry part.
Oh, what?
absolutely.
Even
Oh,
though it
wow.
took two people to tangle, baby, I'm talking about I was worse than Angela Bassett. She
Woo.
lit his stuff up with gasoline. I wanted to put propane and everything on it. You know what I'm saying? I want that junk to blow big. But I had to get past,
Yeah.
that angry part, and realize that if I did that, then you've grown. I had to get to the growth, but first I had to, what I'm saying, I had to take all my cells, and bring them in, because it's a lot of them,
Well,
because it's a one-on-one.
everybody
Yeah,
deals with situations differently.
you're
the,
right. They
the
do.
main the main thing is, and your circumstances may warrant it. Everything that you did, nobody can judge, and I'm the first to say that we shouldn't judge anyone. My main point that I would say to all of that is this: no one makes anybody do anything that they don't want to do. So I heard you when you say, okay, you got to take a look at what you're doing. Now, people may look at that and they say, okay, well, he's justified. He or she is justified. My point is this: everybody has to be mature enough to accept their own responsibility. If you choose to do something, no one made you do it. You did it because you wanted to do it. And if you have those mitigating circumstances that you use to justify it, then that's your prerogative. But no one makes you do anything that you don't want to do.
Now
When
that's
you,
another story. That's
that's
another
right. When you
line
have your own
right
free
there.
mind. Now, if somebody have you captive and they doing all kind, they can influence your decisions and all of that. But what I'm saying in relationship, I don't buy into, all right, well, she wasn't or he wasn't doing this, so I did this in lieu of that. Because the first thing that we discussed when we came on the air was the fact that when we accept our responsibilities, we take accountability for anything that we do. The discussion is about not having regret when you make those decisions, the decision to leave. Not why you make a decision to cheat. Not why you make a decision to take all the money out of the bank account. Not why you make the decision to burn up the car. You know what I mean? That's not what we're discussing. We're saying leave it without regret, because if you do that, that's only a temporary emotion that you're satisfying. And it may feel good for the moment, but it's still, that means you still have some unresolved issues. And we're going to discuss that once we get into it. But
And
listen,
as long as you don't face those issues and you keep those unresolved issues, when you do get into a relationship that could be healthy, that's gonna just tear it down, you know. So I mean that's a big thing that
absolutely.
you have to like let go of everything. It's just like starting over your whole life being for me it was like a new birth, being reborn
Right.
again, you know, because I had to let everything go because I didn't want the trauma and the pain and the hurt that I had endured or gone through to affect that other person and to affect what great things that we could build. I actually wanted to get into somewhere where I could build this time and be a part of the build together, you know.
If we go back to our biblical principles, right? When God created Eve for Adam, he created her with one person, one purpose. And that was because he looked and saw that he was lonely and that he needed a helper. Right? So if we go back to the principles and the things that we preach and believe and say all of these things, then it's very excuse me, it's very difficult to leave a set of circumstances that are undesirable when you are committed to it and you put your all into it. Now, don't get me wrong. Some relationships are not meant to be, but we're talking about the majority of, and particularly in this day and age, we go back to the point of the matter where our parents, they stayed married for 40, 50 years. And I'm sure during those circumstances where resources were limited, where prejudice existed, where there were so many things working against them, they managed to get through it. So now in this modern day, it's easier just to leave it and go find the next one. So when we get back to the biblical concept of a union between a man and a woman, or however you want to look at it nowadays, we have
Mm-hmm.
to go back to the. See, I was passing. I was passing. Now you brought me back. But if we look at the purpose, it becomes a little bit more difficult to leave. Now, here's another point of interest that I want to give to everybody. I want to drop this jewel. Another part of moving on without regret is the understanding that love does not equal longevity. Love does not equal longevity. You
And see,
have
it's some old people, probably be some old people on here, and you gonna make them mad as the devil. But it
no, I
don't,
mean that's
y'all.
listen, I'm just giving the clinical response to all of this because it's important that we understand it. Just because you love somebody don't mean it's gonna last forever. If that were the case, we'd be married to our first high school and grade school sweetheart. But it ain't that way, right?
I
So
mean, well, that's how you looking at it. That ain't how I look
that's
at it.
how
Now,
life is.
don't be
And I'm
telling me
saying,
about that. I'm
listen,
telling you how
listen,
you.
I'm trying to tell you now your
No,
relationship
no.
won't
I
last
think no,
forever.
no, no. I think that's how you might interpret something because when you really find your person, especially if you've gone through something, and you really find that person, that love is forever. I'm not saying you're
Right.
gonna be with. You may not be with that person forever, but
Listen,
you
I'm
always have
not,
that connection.
listen, you're misunderstanding what I said. I'm not saying that the love is not there forever. Love can last forever. I'm saying love in a relationship does not equal longevity. So you can move past the relationship and still love the person that you were in the relationship with. There's a big distinct difference. Now go ahead. Cause
Don't
you
be
trying
telling me to
to
go ahead. I ain't got nothing to say right now to you in a
no,
minute.
you twisted my words. I didn't say that. I didn't say that you can have the love, and don't get me wrong, there are relationships that last forever. That is true. But the understanding of it is that love does not guarantee that you're going to be with that individual forever.
I knew you were gonna be pulling out all this clinical stuff.
What happens if they die? You're not with them?
I ain't saying I'm gonna go with them, but I'm gonna still love them
Okay.
forever.
I'm just, so
Don't even try to say that. Don't use that one.
why?
don't don't use that one.
What if they become ill and get amnesia? They can't even remember who you are.
They gonna remember them pans, and I tell you that. They ain't gonna forget.
All I'm saying, there are circumstances, and this is the reality of it, that love can last forever. I'm with you. Love can last forever. But love in a relationship does not mean longevity. That's what a lot of people get confused. They feel if I'm in love with someone, then it's for life. And you're lucky if it does, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not probable. From the clinical perspective, we want people to understand that love is not equal to the length of time that you're with that person you're in love with. There are plenty of people who were in love with people and they aren't with them now and they still love them, right? Is
You
that
want me
not
to
true?
say yeah?
Well, I'm just saying, I want you to be truthful, that's all.
Oh, 'cause you act like you want me to answer.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But for all our listeners, I want them to understand and make sure you understand that love does not equal longevity. Because if you do that, you're going to have some unrealistic expectations. That's not to say that you should expect the relationship not to work. Just because you understand it, it's just information. And you're better because we're talking about how to lead without regret. If you understand that love does not equal longevity, then it's easy to get to this place that we're talking about, moving on without regret. And that's what we're talking about. Some relationships, hear me out, some relationships are formative and not permanent. They form you. They help you grow. They give you information about yourself and about other people that you may have never considered. So it's formative. It forms a different opinion. It forms and shapes a different reality. All relationships are not permanent. It teaches us boundaries, right? If you're in a relationship, I don't care how bad it is, it teaches us boundaries, reveals emotional blind spots, and sometimes, check this out, sometimes it even clarifies what we need. Because we can get in a relationship and think we need something, and it's not that. But in a relationship, it forms those boundaries, it teaches us boundaries, reveals our emotional blind spots, things that we haven't considered or looked at, and clarifies, in some cases, what we actually need. You don't agree with that, Miss O'Neill?
I ain't said a word right now.
All right.
I'm not gonna say nothing right now because I know Mr. Keithy over there got something to say. So I'm gonna wait till he say,
We having an intelligent and mature discussion. We're sharing.
and I'm listening because because for me, like, and I can only speak from my experience, because whatever. But I was like in a relationship for 30 years, and I thought that was where I was supposed to be 30, 40 years, all my life since I was 15 up until the time I was like 30 something, late 30s. And I thought that was,
said 30, 40 years. I was like, how old are you, 90?
know how long Jesus walked in the desert or something, long time. But I was in a relationship for a long time. And I thought that was where I was supposed to be because I thought that I had a baby, then I had another baby, and I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I can't survive until I really met somebody that taught me that I can survive by myself. Even though I needed someone, and taught me, where the true love was, or the feelings, or the longevity, or the quality of love. Because when you talking about love don't last forever, it's different for me if you would have said the quality of the relationship versus what you're saying. So yeah.
Let's say quality then.
Yeah, the quality. Use that word. Quality, not quantity, okay? Is what I had to realize what really mattered in a relationship, and your peace and the peace of the relationship. And y'all know it's hard for me to shut the heck up, but sometimes I just shut the heck up and let him have the flow. Cause I can't, but I learned, that you have to be quiet, even though it's a struggle for me. So like now that I did leave without regrets, I was able to get myself in a position to accept something better for me, and in hopes that I enhance that person's life as well. And so now that we're at a point where I understand that I enhance his life as well as he enhances mine, and it's about growing and learning new things and learning different stuff about yourself. So but it took me a long time to get to that point. It took me a long time to actually, when you say leave without regrets, when I really put all those regrets out of the door, I was able to love in a healthy way and to be loved in a healthy way. If you hold those regrets, you won't be able to do that. And a lot of people don't know what healthy love is and what a healthy relationship is because they hold on to those regrets, and then they're in these relationships for all these years, and because you think it's the right thing, or you're forcing yourself every day to be this person that it's not. So when you have those little pulls from the universe and from the forces that be, you just have to understand that they're to pull you away from what is not for you and what is not good for you, so that you can accept what is good for you and what is there for you within the universe and the power.
Dee summed it up in a nutshell. Like I said, she said, some things are just not meant to be. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. Some things are just not meant to be, and we have to move on. We can't try to be angry or have all kind of regret and hatred because it didn't work out. It's just some things are not meant to be. They don't want you to take accountability in those situations, as Dee said. So we have to understand these things, and once we understand them, then we can become better people. Now, let me drop this on you all. Just because the relationship ends, it doesn't mean it was wrong. Just because it ends, it doesn't mean it was wrong. It simply means that the job was finished, or complete. If it ends, that means that it was complete, final, and that was the end of that chapter. It doesn't mean that it was wrong. A lot of people think that if the relationship doesn't last forever, which we know most will not, and even the ones that do last with longevity, they end some kind of way in death, sickness, health, or something. So they don't last forever. We have to release the fantasy version of the relationship. Now, here's how most, and Miss O'Neill, I know you're going to jump all on me, but I'm going to say it anyway. Most women have an idea of what it should look like. And I'll say most men do too. And whether or not right or wrong, we have a fantasy of what the relationship looks like. And you know, that's where we get stuck in fantasy land. When we want the White House with the picket fence and the belief that it's going to last forever. And in some cases, we really want our partners to be perfect. We want our partners to be a mirror image of our imagination. So when we get with someone, we have an idea of what we want. So we pass that judgment on to that individual. Now, mature people understand. Mature people that are really in love, they understand that I have to accept this individual as they are. And that's the key to a successful relationship, a successful marriage, whatever. You have to accept them as they are, not as they were. We all get old. We all get sick. The beauty starts to fade. The athleticism starts to go away. So if we don't understand the principle of accepting people as they are in our relationship, then we know that we aren't going to be in relationships very long, because everything about them changes in some form or fashion. Let me see. I'm trying to read y'all comments too. You're right. Hey, Callie. You know I'm sipping on that Dosé right now, Callie. Always cognac, baby girl. You already know. All right. But
I think the biggest thing in relationships is that people have to give other people room to grow. And you have to realize in a relationship, and like I said, for those of you who know, some of you don't know, we all of us on here speaking. I've been through a divorce. It'll be what is this, 26? It'll be actually, yeah, we're going like 14, 15 years coming up in May since I've been divorced. But here's the thing. A lot of people think that, and we naive and sometimes believe that we're going to grow at the same pace. So you may grow faster than your spouse may grow faster than you. There's never going to be really a point where in a relationship, I don't think that everybody's always going to be on the same. You're never going to be on the same level of growth. You got to figure out that happy medium of being on that same wavelength from a communication perspective. And what you said is key. If you're the one that's growing and you see the other person isn't, you have to accept them for who they are, because just because you're growing and they're not, that doesn't make you better than them. It doesn't make them less than you, or vice versa, because they may not have figured out what they need to figure out for themselves, because personal growth is not something your spouse can give you. You still have to figure certain things out for yourself when you're in a relationship. So a relationship is supposed to be about two independent individuals coming together to decide to be together. But that doesn't mean that your thoughts are the same, your growth is the same, everything you do is the same. The people that make it work figure out how to mesh all those things. And I learned these things, you know what I'm saying, through, obviously what it is. And you're always going to look back in a situation and say, I could have did better, because hindsight's 2020. It's real easy to say you could have did better when you learn what you learn now. But if you're organically in the situation, you can't put that pressure on yourself. That's why people got to learn not to live with guilt and certain grief. You know, even when somebody dies, you know, people carry certain grief that they don't have to carry. You can't
Right.
be upset that this happened and they died, so this happened. And well, you didn't interact with them based on the fact that they're gonna die. You interacted with them based on that situation at that time. You
And
understand what I'm
you
saying?
interacted while they were alive, right?
Right, right. So now they dead. So all this happened. No, so a lot of people put stuff on themselves. But what the thing is, and I'll give it back to you on this. At the end of the day, you're responsible for yourself. You can control your actions, your attitude, what you say, what you do, how you respond, everything else. What the other person did has nothing to do with you. Period.
Amen.
So when you start talking about accountability, how you help your spouse, your significant other, the first big way you help them is by taking responsibility for your shit. Excuse my French. And a lot of
Oh,
people
yeah.
try to pass it on. Take responsibility for yourself, and then it eliminates a lot of variables, right? So go ahead, Mr. G.
Oh, yeah. You said a mouthful there. I'm ready to get back into that Zion Canaan choir and start singing one of them old Negro spirituals because you hit it right on the head. Right, DeJoya?
Just said fix it. I just said fix it, Jesus.
I hear you. Okay, but look, hey, Levon, what's happening? And Callie, you know I love you, sweetie. All right, listen. Most regret, guess what? If we can understand this part, most regret is tied to what could have been. As Keith just so eloquently said, it's tied to what could have been instead of what it actually was. If you take
He didn't lie
responsibility,
about that now.
huh?
He ain't lie about that. That's why I said fix it, Jesus. Cause
Oh yeah,
you know, we be worried about, well, you know what, it could have been this way, or if I would have just did this and all of that stuff. It ain't about that. You
yeah.
just have to accept, hey, like it wasn't supposed to be that way. It ain't gonna be that way. Let's move on. Just move on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, the what could have been, we don't know because under a different set of circumstances, it may have been the way that we dreamed and hoped. But that's not our reality. Our reality is the actuality of where it is. And that's the only way that we should be looking at it as to what is, not what could have been, not if I would have done this. That's where regret resides. Regret resides in it, what it could have been. All right? Here's a key point that I want everyone to get. You have to forgive yourself for what you did not know. Lord have mercy. You have to forgive yourself for what you did not know. Let me explain. All right. You enter into a relationship and this person has not ever exhibited that type of behavior. It could be that person was never placed in that kind of stress or in those set of circumstances. So they show you something new. And this can happen often, because as long as you stay with somebody, you're going to discover new things about that individual. So when I say you have to forgive yourself for what you didn't know, those things that you did not know about that individual, you're not responsible for. And you are not the one that made them respond that way. So you get into your relationship and you look at the fact that, and particularly, and I hate to sound chauvinistic or, I'm not trying to do that, but my experience, I'm talking about women because they are the feminine species. So the first thing, they take responsibility for other people's actions quicker than any man will. They will start, if they get some quiet time, they will sit back and they will evaluate the situation. And instead of holding that individual accountable for their actions, they look at themselves, right, DeJoya, and
And they
say,
start justifying. They start
yeah,
justifying all of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yes.
And saying, if I would have done this, he
Right.
wouldn't have done that.
Right.
If I would have been prettier, he wouldn't have cheated.
Right.
If I would have had more money, he wouldn't have stayed out hustling all night.
Exactly.
As I said earlier, people do what they want to do. I don't care how you try to fix it and justify it and qualify it. They do what they want to do. Now, the circumstances that they're under, it could probably influence it, but that doesn't negate the fact that they chose to make that decision.
Look here. If you a grown man and you got a beautiful woman at home and she's ride or die and she wants to be with you and you choose to not make it work, that's you. It ain't nothing she did is making you stay out or making you stay away. You're just choosing to not be unified. Whatever those reasons are, there's something wrong in that situation, because if you really appreciate and you got the attitude of gratitude, and then let's look at it, you've been through something, you're going to take advantage of that situation. Like, look, I ain't messing this up. But the problem is a lot of people are selfish. So when we get into these things that we're talking about, a lot of people are selfish. So when they're in a relationship, they're not looking to actually make the other person better or add value. A lot of people are looking to see what they can get from the situation, whatever that is, monetarily, emotionally, whatever it is. When you're in a relationship, if you truly are about a relationship, that means you basically put yourself second. So if you have two relationships where both people are putting themselves second, man, you headed to the promised land on that thing, baby.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. But here's the thing. I said that you have to forgive yourself for what you didn't know. You acted at that time when they first exposed that behavior or those set of emotions. You acted with the emotional tools you had. So everyone's in a place at a certain time. That's just how space and time is how the earth was created. And there's always a space and time that's unique to every individual, regardless of whether or not the circumstances are similar. So you acted with the emotional tools that you had, the awareness you possessed at the time. So whatever your barometer was to measure it, you did the best you could do because you used the tools that were available. The part that gets me the most, and that's why we're having this discussion on how you can leave without regret, is that when you make a decision, if you're the weaker individual in the relationship, we find reasons to excuse the behavior. I mean, if you with some dude or you with some girl who's all that, and everybody wants her and whatnot, and you look at yourself less than, then you aren't really committed to the relationship. And let me tell you why. Because you said, that ain't possible. Yes, it is possible. Because if you don't give yourself the value that you have, you're putting your partner in a position to where you are allowing them to step on you. You are allowing them to treat you a certain kind of way. Because if you don't have that self-love, if you don't have that value, how can you expect your partner to have it? Are they supposed to be a musician, and just figure out what it is that's bothering you, or what's wrong with you, or why you have low self-esteem? Are they supposed to guess at that? See, that's where the problem comes in. That's why you leave with regret, because we don't have a high level of self-esteem. We don't have self-love. Once you develop those things and you love yourself, and I'm going to tell you, I love me more than anything next to Jesus and God. Are they the same?
But that's the problem. I don't think. Well, I know, like from observing a lot of things, and then from some things that I've gone through myself, a lot of people don't realize that they don't love themselves, or that they don't even like themselves,
Right.
and that's why I say you gotta. When I say you gotta look in the mirror, sometimes you gotta look way through the mirror, because sometimes just looking at it, you just see just what's right there, and sometimes you gotta look past everything that's right there. You have to dive in emotionally, and all those things, emotionally, spiritually, and everything, because to know to love yourself I mean, that's the greatest thing. So a lot of people don't even realize that until it's brought to their attention. A lot of times someone has to bring it to the attention of the individual, like, hey, do you really love yourself? You can't really love yourself, and ABC, this is going on. So I think that when and that's when you can truly leave without the regrets. If you first realize that, hey, I gotta love myself, I gotta choose me first, I gotta, you know what I'm saying, I gotta work on me, and in that respect, it's okay to be selfish, because you can't be in a relationship with somebody and not love yourself. I can't say I truly love you or Keith or anybody, whether I'm in a relationship or not, without loving myself. So I think that people have to really grasp that concept first before they can move on without regrets, and before they can fully love another person, love somebody else, truly
Hey,
love
check
somebody.
check this out. Hey, cousin. Hey, Frederick. Listen, I'm not saying that it's easy for people to develop self-love. The way you feel about yourself is shaped up by a lot of different things. Your environment, your parents, your friends, your environment, your social environment, your financial position. There's a host of things that shape who you are. So I'm not saying it's easy. When I throw these things out there, I'm just saying that you have to find a way to love yourself. However you go about getting it done. For some people, as you just said, DeJoya, it may take someone in to come in and to bring that out of you. And that's perfectly fine. What do I always say? It's the mission that's most important. Nothing else really matters. It's it's always the mission that's most important. Nothing else really matters. So as long as you get there, that's the key, and it makes you feel better about yourself. For some people, they were fortunate; they come from loving environments. They had things already in place for them, so that loving themselves might become a little easier. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you got a silver spoon, because we already know there are plenty of rich people, there are plenty of people who are privileged, who are batty as a bat and crazy and loony. We already know that those people exist. So it's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with an environment that fosters and gives you the freedom to learn to love yourself, and to learn that who I am is who I'm meant to be. Now, once you get to that understanding, your life is enhanced, and you start to love living, and you start loving yourself, and you can't love anyone else till you love yourself first. I don't care what you think. If you don't love yourself, you can't love no one else, because you don't know how love feels. You're using some other barometer, some other measuring tool. If you don't know how it feels, how can you give it to me? Or vice versa. So, growth makes our past choices look flawed. When we grow, it makes our past choices look flawed. But we have to understand that does not make them wrong. We don't live in a perfect world, and we can't make perfect decisions all the time. When we grow, we can look at our past behavior and see that we had some flaws, but that doesn't make them wrong. If I choose to do something based on my set of circumstances, nobody else can evaluate or judge that. That's why the good book says, he that can cast the first stone, let him cast the first stone. So none of us can judge. So because we have flaws in our past, it doesn't necessarily mean it was wrong. Wisdom always arrives after the experience. Wisdom always arrives after the experience. I think Keith said, anybody can look back in hindsight because it's 2020. You can see then. Anybody can look back in hindsight and say, hey, if I had the choice to do it over again, I wouldn't have made that decision. I wouldn't have did that. But wisdom always arrives after the experience. So what you got to do is stop rehearsing the alternate timeline. Live for the moment. Live in what it is. Don't look at your relationship if you're trying to leave without regret and wonder and hope how it should have been or could have been. Live in the reality of what it actually is. Now, none of this stuff is easy. But if you save this live and you go back and you refer to some of the points that we're making, it's going to go off. That bell is going to go off. Your mind will always replay conversations. Hey, I know y'all know. Hey, you know how when you break up and you start rehearsing in your mind, he said this and I said that. You try to figure out where it went south. We all do that. So your mind will replay conversation, it will rewrite, and it will allow you to second guess and say, what if you allow it? You have to learn to control. And that's a automated response that we do. We can't help it subconsciously. We start replaying all those things that happen. Just like when we dream or when we go to sleep. We always see things that have happened for whatever reason. Maybe that's God's way of giving us the ability to evaluate and make better choices in the future. We have to interrupt what is rewriting and what is replaying with this one truth. I'm going to take me a drink before I give it to you. As I said, your mind will rewrite and replay the conversations if you allow it. But you need to interrupt it with this. If it requires you to be smaller, chase, or betray yourself or your values, it wasn't alignment. So when those things start going through your mind, if it required you to shrink, chase after whoever you're with, or chase something else, or chase whatever desire that you want, or betray yourself, it wasn't alignment. Peace does not come from winning someone back. Just because you win them back doesn't mean that you're going to have peace. So peace does not come from winning someone back. It comes from coming back to yourself. I'm gonna let that sink in. You on mute, DeJoy.
I finna say something. I know how to unmute my microphone now, but
I know you drinking a blue moon.
yeah, they be getting to me, man. But
Yeah.
you know what? Some things, I thought about that from that aspect too. Some things just aren't worth getting back. If it hurt me before, then what makes me think it's not gonna hurt me again? You know what I'm saying? So some things are just not worth getting back, and the fact that we do suffer the hurt and the rejection and whatever we're the different things we're talking about now, when we leave, and without having regrets and things like that. Those are the things that make me not have regrets if I ever think about going back, or the reasons why I left. If I got to think about the hurt that it caused and different things like that, I don't have any regrets of leaving. Once I collect myself, once I pick up my pieces, as Jasmine Sullivan says, I don't have any regrets about leaving or whatever, because one, love isn't supposed to hurt. Two, you shouldn't have to be
Say that
sitting
again.
there. Love is not supposed to hurt,
Oh man.
and I yeah, it took a long time for me to get to the spot in my life where I realized that I shouldn't have to hurt. I shouldn't have to be having second guess and guess about things, or how I felt, or voicing how I felt, or letting them know how different things made me feel about how they did different things. So when I left, I had the regrets at first, but that's when I had to sit back and realize, like, hey, it ain't supposed to be like this. So once you really know how things are supposed to work and you get in that groove, then you won't have regrets about leaving. You won't have anything to think about in the past. I don't even look back that way, other than the fact that I have kids, and we have to co-parent, things like that in my relationships. Even people that I've seen in relationships past the last relationship, hey, I don't have any regrets about that at all. I can still see you and speak to you, or decide, hey, I'll give you the head nod. I don't want to open my mouth, or whatever it may be, but I'm able to move on as a mature, healed adult. I'm not a part of the hurt anymore. There
Right,
are,
because you're in charge of yourself
yeah.
now.
I
Yeah.
mean, the scars are still, you still gonna remember the scars. I posted something yesterday about my story is already written, and I thought about, sometimes we rip the pages out of our books, and, we rip them off, or, you write something, so you rip the pages out. I'm not ripping any more pages out, neither am I putting a marker there, but if I have to go back and refer to it, it's there. So those are the things that we have to remember when we are going through things, or building ourselves and relationships and rebuilding. Don't ever throw the pages away. Just leave them there. So if you have to go back and refer, then they're there, so you don't end up in the same spot you left.
Oh yeah.
So anyway,
You're
that's just my
absolutely
take
right.
on that.
You're absolutely right. All right. Hey, look, we have 1K again. So thank all of you. We love all of you all. We have 1,000 viewers again. So thank you all for joining us. But check this out. As I said, peace doesn't come from winning someone back. It comes from going back to yourself, or becoming yourself again. Regret will always dissolve when your pain gains a purpose. Your regret will dissolve once your pain gains a purpose. In other words, if you are regretting something, it's because there's something unresolved. So once you see that pain and you take that as a strength, as learning, then your pain becomes part of your purpose, because you integrate that into your life. And from that moment on, that pain is no longer regret. Instead of thinking you lost somebody or you lost something, you should tell yourself you gain clarity, strength, and standards. You gain clarity, strength, and standards. The final truth is this. You move on without regret when you can say to yourself, I was honest with my love, I learned deeply, and I enhanced everything about myself, and I enhanced my understanding of what love is. And the final piece of that is this, and I left with my dignity. So busting the windows out the car, hitting them in the head with frying pans, DeJoya, you're losing your dignity.
Don't you dare
You
reference
wanna
what
leave?
I
The
said.
final part to that is leaving with your dignity and your dignity intact. Now, let's get a little deeper into why it's difficult for most people to move on without regret. So I'm gonna give y'all a moment to get your notepads out. But this is important. People struggle to move on without regret, not because they love too deeply, but because something inside of them stays unresolved. People struggle to move on without regret, not because they love too deeply, but because something inside of them is unresolved. That is the reason. You have unresolved issues. People call it closure, people call it getting even, people call it whatever. There's something unresolved. Whether you're questioning whether or not you were good enough, or you didn't deserve that treatment, whatever the reasons are, there's something that is unresolved. Period, point blank. Now, our brains hate unfinished emotional business. Our brains get kind of haywire when we have unfinished emotional business. So guess what happens? That means when things end without honest conversation, without clear accountability, that's what we call unfinished emotional business. Our real emotional expression, our minds will keep searching for closure. So our brains hate when we don't have these things resolved. So they will keep searching and searching for closure. It hates to leave things open. So guess what our brains do? And this is what we're trying to impart to you all. Because things are unresolved, our minds will continue to replay the past, and it's going to try to finish the story. So that's why you keep going back and forth, because your mind is going to force you to come to some sort of conclusion. It don't care whether or not it's right or wrong, it has to have closure. When you say you want closure, no, it's not you that want closure, it's your brain. You're not going to be able to function properly until you give that closure. And your brain is going to force you to close it. That's why it's going to keep taking you back to the past. It's going to keep taking you back and replaying all the circumstances that happened until you bring it to closure. Now, there's a way out of all of that. there's a way that you can keep your mind from replaying and searching for that closure. It requires radical acceptance. Radical acceptance simply means it ended. It requires self-forgiveness, meaning you did what you could. And you took ownership and got the lesson. And finally, you grew. And finally, reclaimed your identity. That makes you whole again. Let me give it to you again. It requires for you to avoid your mind replaying the conversations and the events, and your mind playing tricks on you, as the song used to say. It requires radical acceptance, meaning you accept the fact that it ended. Self-forgiveness, meaning you did what you could, and you took ownership for the lesson. You grew, and finally reclaimed your identity. Moving on without regret isn't about erasing the past or convincing yourself it didn't happen or it didn't matter. It's about closing the loop with honesty and self-respect. So you have to close the loop with honesty and self-respect. When you accept the fact that you showed up and with the awareness you had at the time, you release the need to punish yourself for what you didn't know yet. When you say to yourself, I showed up with what little awareness I had at that particular time, then you release the need to punish yourself for what you did not know. How can you hold yourself accountable for something that you did not know? That's why every civilized society has what we call mitigating circumstances. And they have laws that are geared towards juveniles versus adults. Because juveniles aren't expected to know certain things. That's why when you become an adult, you are held to a higher standard. If I steal a bubble gum out of the store as a 7 or 8 year old, my penalty is not that severe. If I steal when I'm 35 years old, then there's some penalty that's more severe than for that 8-year-old. So we can't hold ourselves accountable for things that we didn't know. So when we do all of these things, your regret starts to fade when responsibility is balanced with compassion. So you aren't angry, you aren't upset, you understand that it didn't work out and that it ended, and you're fine with it. When it's time for us to leave a relationship, God ain't gonna remove the people for us. God will not remove the people for us. He will expose them. You will be forced to see what you chose to overlook.
There you go.
So, all right, that's a good conclusion there. He will expose them, and you will be forced to see what you chose, and you made a choice to overlook it. Keith, you got anything you want to add before I close it out?
Man, I just say there you go. So, because when you get in relationships, you can be blinded and as the saying goes, love is blind and all these different things that happen. And you just, unfortunately, as a saying, I heard the saying a long time ago, many years ago, is the handwriting is always on the wall. You just got to take time to stop and read it. And
Absolutely.
a lot of time in relationships, the handwriting is there. We, all of us, at different points, we just choose to not, like you said, pay attention to it. And then we learn the hard way. And unfortunately, like you said, wisdom comes from hard lessons and learning.
Yeah.
Man, we must be some of the most wisest people out here right now. You know what I mean? What's going on out here?
Yeah. Hey, wisdom comes after the experience. It always comes after the experience. All right. So anyway, again, thank all 1K of you all who joined us tonight. Hey man, we knew this was going to be exciting. Callie, we're going to bring you on next time because you got a lot to say. And D, we're going to bring you on too. Maybe you can lead us in a prayer or sing a song while I play or something. But anyway, in conclusion, ultimately, you move on without regret when you reclaim your identity from the relationship. Because when you join together in a relationship, your identity is sort of merged if you don't understand how relationships work. First of all, a relationship does not deprive you of your individuality. It gives you the ability to tolerate someone else's individuality. So let's clear that up. When you move on without regret, you carry forward the growth and not the weight of the relationship. You don't carry forward what did not work. Whatever did not work, you learn from that and you add that to your repertoire. That becomes part of your arsenal now. You can guard yourself from future harm. You can advise properly, and you can live without making those same mistakes. When you're ready without regret, you don't need another conversation. You don't need an apology or outcome to validate your worth. You could care less about any of that because you're happy with yourself. You know who you are. You've grown from the relationship. So you put it in the right perspective and you know that the relationship does not diminish or define who you are. Excuse me. So finally, in other words, when you are ready to move on without regret, you've learned and you've grown from the experience. You've learned and you've grown from the experience. And this is worth repeating. When it's time for us to leave a relationship, God will not remove them for us. He will expose them, and you will be forced to choose and see what you chose not to see before, what you overlooked. You will have another choice, but now it's going to be apparent. He's going to make those things visible to you where you cannot ignore. All right. Thank all of you for joining us. We had another great live, so we'll see y'all next Wednesday. Au revoir, au revoir, au Wiedersehen, and goodbye, and we'll see you all next Wednesday. All right.
All right, peace.